my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits of June 30th to July 6th. Now, I'm going to put this out a little bit earlier than normal, only because the weekend before this actual week, so specifically on June 28th, I will be in Denton, Texas for the Oddities Market event that's going to be taking place. I'm going into this event blind. I've never been a part of this group. I don't know anything about nothing. And I'm just letting everybody know because I have so many people in that DFW, Northern Texas area that has been asking for me to come back down. And I haven't been down in over 2 years. And I'm coming down this weekend. So I'm making everybody aware. Some of you guys have already told me that you're coming to the event, and that's going to be wonderful. I'm so grateful to see all of you. We're going to do a dinner on Saturday evening at a local Mexican restaurant. So there is going to be, some time outside of the event to, sit and chill and conversate and get to know each other in person versus just, seeing me through a screen. I do stuff outside of YouTube. Okay. So there's that. Another little announcement is I am going to do a strategic play through the upcoming Mercury retrograde. And this is a part of the kind of announcements of what I'm going to be doing. Starting July 26th, I will be doing twice a month classes at a local facility known as Energestic. I've already been working with them since May. I'm their in-house astrologer. I do in-person readings there. I've done their events now. And starting in July, I'm going to be teaching Astrology 101 classes. And that's actually going to be here local. It is not online. And I already know because I put it out on Facebook and most of you said online. Not starting it that way. I am starting it in person because I have been specifically requested to do it this way. We're going to use the Mercury retrograde strategically. We're going to see how it works. And if it's going to be something that I enjoy and I continue to do, then I will start to look at a way to create an online curriculum for the people that want it. So there's that. I'm just not a traditional teacher and a traditional student. Everything that I do is self-taught. So I always feel like my stuff feels chaotic compared to other people's, but we're going to do what we can. But starting in July, again, for my local people, I will be teaching classes like Astrology 101 classes starting on July 26th. So yay, Mercury retrograde tests. Anyways, moving along. There's a vibration of the weekend that sets the stage for a opinion. It sets the stage for the awareness, for the agreements, for the commitments, for what is going to feed into the changes that we will be dealing with throughout the rest of the summer. All of June, basically. I've said we're getting into a new normal. We're stepping into a new normal. We're doing new things. We're meeting with new people. We're coming into new agreements. We're setting the stage for new things. We're doing the stuff. We're doing stuff. And the whole idea as to why I keep saying that is some of you are so close to the situation that you don't even realize that you're into the new normal until I like pull you back going, no, step A, B, C, D. This is it. Going into this new job, taking on the care and responsibility of either someone else's kids or your parents or something else. Going into that new business partnership, relocating, opening the store, whatever you have done in the recent weeks to push forward a new awareness, a new agenda, a new idea, a new conversation. This was us stepping into our new normal. All of June was stepping into that. The rest of 2025, still including the June in that aspect. And all of 2026, I keep saying it, we're moving into our new normal, but we're still at the beginning stage. And the awareness of this new vibration is also going to trigger the next side of release, the next side of purge, the next side of change based off of what we've committed to, what we've announced, what we're willing to do, what we're willing to take on, who we're willing to do business with, who we are willing to trust, and who we no longer work with. There has been a transition. Certain people have been getting left behind. Certain responsibilities have been getting left behind. certain legal situations, because it's Saturn still, have been getting left behind. But another thing that we've been becoming aware of over the course of these few days, whether it's the previous week or the week that we're looking at now, there can also be a turn in regards to beliefs, versions of the truth, as well as treatments. Now, why do I say that? I'm going to start with the fact that Mercury is in shadow. Late Sunday evening, going into Monday, Mercury entered shadow, but Mercury entered shadow in an opposition to Pluto. There was a trigger, there was a power struggle, there was a frustration, there was the potential of fear, there was some kind of news that brought forth an awareness. That awareness is encompassing how we start this week. And there are layers as to why I'm saying that. There was a commitment. There were certain things that were announced that other people were like, I don't know why you're doing this. That don't even make sense. I don't know why you're trying. And sometimes what gets brought to the surface is triggering an insecurity, making you question if you are doing the right thing. Don't listen to their insecurity. Don't listen to the projection of other people onto you. Stay focused on your path. Stay focused on what you desire. Stay focused on what you want. The start of the week is the awareness, the conversations, the commitments, the planning of exactly that, what we want. As we go through this week, there's going to be a turn. And that has to do with the fact that on July 4th, Neptune is going to turn retrograde. But there's other planets going on and doing things while Neptune is turning retrograde that tells me that as we move forward into our new commitment, our new journey, this is my business, this is how I'm doing it, this is who I'm partnered with, this is what I believe, this is what I want to do, and the insecurities of other people, you will slowly have an opinion turn that you don't see them the same way. The rose-colored glasses of who you believe certain people were is going to flip. It's going to change. And there will be certain unexpected truths that come through that make us aware that sometimes we have to take up for ourselves. But I don't mean this in the physical put your dukes up sense. I mean this in the sense of like, say that crap again. I dare you. I will make you feel 2 inches tall just by explaining exactly what I'm good at doing. You don't deserve an opinion about my life. Keep it to yourself. And there will be an unexpected revealing that really encompasses the weekend. And that really comes down to, again, Neptune turning retrograde and the other transits that's going on. And as we get into the week, I'll explain that a little bit more in detail. But Neptune's not always about the rose-colored glasses. It's not always about the lies, the fraud, the deception. Sometimes it will have to do with treatments. And there can become an awareness that certain treatments, certain medicines, certain addictions cannot continue. As much as Neptune can be positive, it can be negative. So I got to put all that in there too. And there can be something about the week that shows us, oh, I can't party with them the same way. That's a negative aspect. In other ways, it can be like, yeah, grandpa can't handle the chemo. We can't handle the radiation. That treatment, yeah, they're not going to continue it. They're going to discontinue it. They're going to take them off that medicine. They're going to do something different because there's a negative impact. And our hope is if by just taking him off of it or shifting gears or going in another way that we can renew our focus into something else, that we can try to be a little bit better, that we can make the best of what time we have left. Neptune turning retrograde. The other thing that can come through by the end of the week is because we are progressing forward, there is a shift in the versions of truth, shift in the ideas and the beliefs. And as you progress forward, full steam ahead, this is what I'm doing. I'm so excited. I'm so proud. I'm so happy. Other people that previously did show support no longer support you. It will show you the wave of where we're going to have to start cutting some ties. I am a firm believer that people come into our life for a reason or a season. We don't always know the season and how long it's going to last. I never like to use the term forever person, because if you're married for 30 years, but then someone passes away and your life continues, do we call that forever? Or do we call that a season? I call it a season, personally. Everybody has a purpose. But when the season is over and frequencies of two people change, whether that is a passing or whether that's a breakup, I don't see eye to eye. I don't connect with you the same way. We just ain't friends anymore. There will be a vibration and an awareness that as you progress into your new normal, certain people will not continue with you. And that wave is going to come through between this week and next week. And I want people to be aware of that. And I don't want you to take it as a bitter energy that y'all ain't on the same frequency anymore, reason or a season. If you are elevated and you're motivated and you're moving forward into something new, you can't take everything with you. There's a reason we make space. And there will be little inklings for people between the end of this week and next week, especially as we get close to the next week's full moon, that certain people will not be able to continue something, whether that's in their own health, whether that has to do with like a difference of opinions. It's going to vary for everybody. But the first little bit will be very unexpected. And it is the most heightened July 3rd, 4th, and 5th, especially the 4th. And that's not an Independence Day thing. That's like 100% like July 4th. But there is an awareness of something that's going to be setting in. And that's really how we start the week. And for some people, that awareness makes us very critical. It can make us very critical of ourselves. It can make us very critical of other people. It can also make us very conscious of where our focus needs to be, of the method, of the path, of the message, of the planning, of the strategy that really encompasses how we start the week. But a lot of how we start the week, specifically Monday, now we're going to start to get into the transits, is going to be a bleed over from the news, the information, the confirmation, the situations, the whatever that was coming through from the weekend, good, bad, or ugly. It doesn't matter. It's not about that weight per se. Now, whenever it comes to Monday, the direct transits do not actually hit until real late at night, specifically between 10 p.m. and midnight. And I got it now at 10:30. The moon is going to make a conjunction to the south node, while simultaneously we're going to have a CONTRA-ANTISCIA, which for those that don't know, CONTRA-ANTISCIAs are secret transits. I don't bring them up very often, but this one came through really strong in my meditation. That's going on between Venus and Pluto. Well, Venus has a very heavy hand to this week. She's playing a lot into this vibration. As much as we are dealing with Mercury in shadow for the first time, and with all day Monday, the moon being in Mercury sign, I'd be very, very aware of what Virgo represents for us, because there is an awareness that's coming to light, that's coming into focus, that's being talked about, that's being announced, that's being worked through, it's being communicated, it's being negotiated all throughout the day on Monday. But whenever it comes to the evening time, the moon's conjunction to the south node could be a couple different energies. One, it can be we get some kind of news that completely informs us that something is changing in regards to the impact of our body, because the south node is the body of the dragon. And this can have to do with health. For other people, it's going to be something that we need to make the decision of what we're going to release and do differently. That, again, can be the moon's conjunction to the south node with Mercury now in shadow. I'm going to add a layer to that one. Who we need to release and let go of. And there can be a very unexpected vibration even here of somebody saying something, but it's like by saying it, it confirms a power dynamic. And that now speaks to that CONTRA-ANTISCIA between Venus and Pluto. If I was to fold the chart at the solstice line, the equinox line, Venus and Pluto would be laying on top of each other, making what's known as a secret conjunction. There's a confirmation to something, especially as we go into the later parts of Monday. And it can be the confirmation of a deep-seated feeling regarding certain new power dynamics, certain power struggles, a fear. And considering what happened with Mercury's opposition to Pluto, there can be layers to the fear that has been committed to, that has been brought forth, that has been made aware. And again, a lot of the energy that we're starting to step into right now, we will be coming back to it in August. So some of those changes are going to be layered throughout the future. So be aware of that part too. Be aware of what we're committing to, what we're agreeing to, because there will be a strategic revisiting by the time we get into the middle of August. So put a pin, journal if you can, pay attention to the conversations. It'll help you a lot. Okay, moving along. This is the only direct transit, though, to Monday. So Monday does feel like it's a carryover from the week, and I feel like a lot of us, we've got things we're trying to put into an order going into the entire day of Monday. But now we're going to go into Tuesday, and we're going to go into the first. Now, there's a lot more going on whenever it comes to Tuesday. As we get into the morning time between 8:30 and 10:30 a.m., Venus is going to make a trine to the moon. So I got this now at 8:30. Here's Venus, 26 degrees, 36 minutes. Here is the moon, 26.3. So we're just at the start of like the most heightened energy. This is earth to earth. I'm being productive. I'm giving support. Again, Venus is going to have a very heavy hand in some of the transits this week. So there can be a little bit of foreshadowing, but the foreshadowing feels like the commitment, the guidance, the vibration towards something that we are going to do later and giving some kind of direction. Now, the other part of Venus's trine to the moon is by the afternoon, the moon is going to be in Libra. The moon is going to be in Venus's sign. So there can be something that is spoken about what has been confirmed, about what has been committed to, about what has kind of come through, what has been solidified, this new kind of belief that's kind of focused into the vibration that is going to become a part of our attention once the moon goes into Libra. Now, the moon's not in Libra yet. We still got a couple more things going on, but there can be something spoken that once it gets spoken, once it becomes fact, once we get the documents, once we're served something, once we sign off on something, once paperwork arrives, it then turns into something that we need to adjust or negotiate. But there can be some type of like news or arrival that literally starts to then later encompass how the next few days are going to go right here whenever Venus hits that trine to the moon. Okay. Now, as we get into the afternoon between 2:30 and 5 p.m., I gave a little bit of a larger window on this one. Uranus is going to hit a trine to the moon. Now, the reason I gave a little bit of a larger window is because, again, Uranus is at that very late area of Taurus. And even whenever the moon changes signs and goes into Libra, it will still be within less than a degree's range of a trine from Uranus. So I gave a little bit more of a window because, again, there can be something unexpected, something kind of exciting, something new that starts to come through in the vibration that, again, speaks to something that we're going to become newly aware of. At 4:17 p.m., the moon is going to go into Libra. You can see that here. And again, something new, something very unexpected, something a little bit exciting brings our awareness into something new that we're going to be dealing with over the course of the next few days. Now that the moon is in Libra, now that the moon is in Venus's sign. Now, over the course of these next few days, while the moon is in Libra, Venus, the ruler of Libra, is going to be coming into a conjunction to Uranus. It is coming to a conjunction at the very end degrees of Taurus, of something that is going to come to a close. And for a lot of people, whatever is coming to a close is going to be very, very unexpected. But it also feels balancing. It also feels necessary. It also feels like it's justified. Please note the justified part. The moon is in Libra. This is all about scales, fairness, balance. And there can be certain things, certain statements that start to come through while the moon is in Libra that creates this unintended, unexpected vibration over the next few days of something needs to round out differently. And it's going to have a shock wave vibration to it based off of the moon going through Venus's side. But this all feels mental. It all feels logical. It feels, again, spoken. But it's like whatever new information comes through, it also immediately leads to something new starting, all while the moon is going through Libra. So there's a very big Venusian transition here, and it can be beneficial for a lot of people, but it can be, again, very unexpected for others. Unexpected, intended. You catch my drift. Okay, moving along. The moon is now in Libra. Now, once the moon goes into Libra, it's doing stuff really, really quick, especially going into the evening time. And this is where we might have some tension. This is where we might have some frustration, something different in the vibration, because between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m., I'm going to give a bigger window here. The moon is going to hit the opposition to Saturn. You can see it's almost exact right here. It goes exact closer to 8 o'clock. If I bump this to 8:30, the moon will hit its actual opposition to Neptune. It is almost exact right here. And Saturn and Neptune are as close as they're going to get. Neptune is going to turn retrograde on the 4th. Saturn turns retrograde next week, right after that full moon in Capricorn. So we're coming to a turning point. And some of the things that are being spoken, negotiated, talked about can elicit certain reactions of a turned behavior. Certain beliefs that are not going to continue, certain treatments that will not continue, certain changes that will not continue. And that can also speak to whatever unexpected vibration hits during the 4th of July. That can feel a lot more positive. But I feel like this first opposition can still have tension in this vibration, or it can have people becoming very overly critical, like, well, what if we did something else? What if we tried something else? What if we do this? What if we go here? What if we talk to somebody else? What if we get another opinion? What if we look at another way to get the financing? What if, and like sometimes you're just going to what if everything to death. And some of you all have heard me say that to you before in our individual sessions. You're asking the same question in a different form of words, but you're expecting a different answer. Sometimes you have to just face that you cannot commit to the insanity. And there's something about when the moon hits the opposition to Saturn, talking to somebody that is an elder, talking to an authority figure, trying to gather as much information. And the other side can be really, really confused, especially if we're talking about an elder. Or there can just be coming to terms with a treatment like, oh, this is the last week we're going to do this treatment. Grandpa's not going to continue. Pitpaw, whatever you want to call him. He's not going to keep doing it. Mom's going to go in a different way. I don't like this. I don't believe this. I don't want to do this in the same way anymore. And this announcement of that can have layers as to like how it's being received and perceived. But it's a very necessary part of the turn, whether we like it or not. Just to be clear. Okay. Now, this is happening simultaneous when the moon hits the opposition to Saturn and Neptune. I'm giving a bigger window of where we can have some very serious discussions of something, where we need to make hard decisions, where we need to have some kind of guidance, where we need someone else's perspective to give us the clarity or we're giving an understanding of what we're about to change based off of, again, those two stationing, even though they're not turning retrograde right this second. Okay. Now we go into a little bit deeper into the evening time between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m. So I got this at 10:30. The moon is going to go into a trine with Pluto. So here's the moon, 3 degrees, 8 minutes. Here's Pluto, 3 degrees, 7. We're just past the exact. Pluto, it can be fear, it can be frustration, it can be a power struggle, it can be the transformation, it can be how we can overcome something. We can be talking about a past fear or a past frustration. There again could be something about the confirmation of the power dynamic that really came through since Monday, of whether it is being accepted or not, of how we're going to work through it, what the reception has been with other people, and what we're going to do, whether they like it or not. That could be another part of this. But there is something about we need to revisit something towards old wounds. And think of it this way. If you tell your dad you're going to start a business, or you've made a commitment, or you're starting this new job that they don't agree with. Sometimes you just need to know that they're not going to agree with it. And it's just telling people, yeah, it's just like what I thought it was going to happen. They behaved, they acted just the way that I thought they would, just like they did whenever I was younger, just like they did when this situation happened when I was a teen, that type of thing. It's like, it's based off of how harsh or heavy a conversation went, that it brings up old fears, old insecurities, old wounds. And sometimes, again, we need those old wounds to come back up to the surface because we need to work towards healing them. Or there's something about this situation bringing up that old wound that it's allowing you to heal it in a way that you didn't realize you still needed to heal. But it's all logical, it's all spoken, and all very conversational. Okay, now moving along. We're getting into the second. We're getting into Wednesday. Of course, the moon is going to be in Libra all day long. The first transit that's going to happen happens between 1:30 and 3:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Here is Jupiter, 5 degrees, 6 minutes, making a square to the moon at 5 degrees, 9 minutes. Jupiter is the doctor, the guru, the teacher. We just had a new moon last week conjunct that Jupiter. There's some lessons that need to be spoken about. There is some information that needs to be shared. Sometimes we need the guidance of that guru type person, the supportive person that helps us understand, that helps us heal, that helps us work through something. Like, this is how you can care for yourself in this situation. Jupiter now being in that exuded energy of Cancer. Jupiter in Cancer is a very different vibration from what Jupiter in Gemini was. And it feels softer. And sometimes we just need a certain kind of support or a certain type of healing. This is happening in the overnight hours, so there can be some downloads in regards to how we care for ourselves and different things in regards to like what we need to do to feel better. Now, there might be some restless energy in the overnight hours of Tuesday into Wednesday because a lot of our transits are in that overnight energy. Jupiter hits that square to the moon again between 1:30 and 3:30. Between 4:30 a.m. and 6:30 a.m., so I got this now at 5:30, Mercury is going to make a sextile to that moon. So again, our logical brain, things that are being communicated, we might go into Wednesday morning knowing we have to walk right out the door. We have to travel. We have to go somewhere. And that's just a part of the agenda. And it's letting somebody know, like, first thing in the morning, hey, I'm on the road. I overslept. I did, or I couldn't sleep at all. We're already doing something. We're already communicating something. We're already going somewhere. There's already some level of correspondence. Some of us are waking up to some kind of correspondence because I'm going off of Mercury stuff, getting some kind of confirmation, having some type of conversation about direction and path. This is not heavy. Jupiter is still in that square to the moon. So this actually feels very, very supportive whenever it comes to Wednesday morning. And it speaks to the direction. It speaks to the guidance. It speaks to healing. It speaks to something, I'm going to say profound, but not like deep-seated profound, but just helps you get over the hump. It is hump day. It is Wednesday. So let's get over the hump. Okay. Moving along. Our energy will start to progress as the day continues, our mental energy especially, but also our physical energy, because once we get into the afternoon between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m., so now I got this at 2:30, we're going to go through our quarter moon. So here's the sun, 11 degrees, 9 minutes. Here's the moon, 11 degrees, 9 minutes. It is exact. The first quarter moon, which means we're building up to a full moon that will happen next week on July 10th. But a lot of times whenever we start to get past that waxing quarter moon, we start to feel a buildup in our energy. We start to feel something progress in our energy. We start to feel certain things take a pickup in a lot of ways. What is interesting is, again, this is a quarter moon in Venus's sign. And over these next 36 hours, Venus is going to hit that conjunction to Uranus. So there can already be that first wave of some of the expect the unexpected vibrations kind of coming through, or feeling something exciting coming through, even if we're not having something exciting in the moment. It's like we're almost like trying to manifest some level of excitement. But you can feel this buildup very deeply as we go through the entire day, especially in the afternoon. I feel like people's energies are really going to pick up in regards to the direction of what we're feeling like it's time to change. We might not be making the changes right this moment, but we feel the direction setting in. Okay, we're going to get into the third. Now, whenever it comes to the third, there's not a whole lot going on. Now, what I will say about the third is this is the last full day of Venus in Taurus. The moon is in Venus's sign. And the only transit that's going to happen is actually going to happen in the evening time between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m. So I'm bumping us now to 10:30. And the moon, again, in Venus's sign, is going to hit this opposition to Chiron. I want to talk about the wound. I want to talk about the fix. I want to talk through some ideas, the actions that we need to take, the things that we need to change, the things that are coming through, the process, the strategy, the progress, the procedure. I want to talk about some things. And this can feel exciting, considering we have Venus Uranus conjunction that is building, but it is not exact. There can also be something that creates a wound unexpectedly, because again, Venus and Uranus are hitting their conjunction, but it's not exact. It doesn't go exact until Friday, but they're right on top of each other, babies. Like they're right there. They're almost as close as Saturn and Neptune, but Venus is hosting that moon. That's why I'm more focused on Venus than I am Saturn and Neptune. There can be something that, again, creates a wound unexpectedly, gives you some kind of unexpected way of rethinking about like a past trauma, a past trigger, and how to heal from a wound. That could be another more positive way that this can be perceived. But there is still kind of that expect the unexpected as we go through the evening of Thursday. But other people can be having to face a fear, face a trauma, face a wound, or be given guidance of how to overcome a wound or how to fix certain things. Okay, now we're going to get into the fourth. And the fourth is a lot busier. Now, in the overnight hours, the moon is going to stay in Libra, but by morning time, it will actually transition into Scorpio. At 4:33 a.m., that is whenever we're going to have the actual transition. So I'm going to take this to 5:30. Here's the moon newly in Scorpio. And it's really interesting to have the moon in Scorpio while Mars is in Virgo, because I feel like, again, there's a criticalness, there is an awareness, there's a strategy, there's an action of changing information based off of like the information that starts to come through. But I'm also looking at the fact that right as the moon goes from Venus's sign to Mars's sign, Venus is hitting that conjunction to Uranus. That's how we start the day on Friday. There can be some very unexpected things that come to the surface throughout the day on Friday, just the most exact of the morning time. For some people, it's going to be the night before, whenever the moon Chiron thing was going on. But for other people, it's going to be having certain things spoken that feel critical, even though they might not be critical. The perception feels like that we're criticized. And again, it can bring up some deep-seated wounds that reflect us needing to put certain people in their place. And sometimes the truth hurts. And that's what I feel about July 4th. Sometimes the truth hurts. And certain things that get spoken, certain things that come about, certain things that we start to educate other people on. There's like layers that one person makes a little jab, but you ain't dealing with it right now. It's like, so how's your affair? How's your mistress? Oh, you didn't think that I'd known that you've been cheating on your wife for 8 years? My bad. I don't care. We're going to say certain things that create new wounds, but there's like facts behind them. There's receipts behind them. There's proof behind them. It doesn't feel petty, but it also feels like a very revealing vibration. So happy Independence Day, all you crazy Americans. And anyways, moving along. Let's get it back into it. The moon is now in Scorpio. Now between 7:37 and 7:58 a.m., so I got this now at 7:30, this is where Venus and Uranus go the most exact. Now again, we are building to this vibration all day on Thursday. It goes exact Friday morning. I said it on Thursday. There's an expect the unexpected part of the vibration. Here it is exact. Something is expect the unexpected, but it's happening at the 29-degree mark. Something needs to come to a close, 29-degree mark conjunction, so something else can begin, so something else can transition, so something else can be spoken about. Now, over the course of the day, we have other things that are going on that are going to continue to speak to that exact same vibration and mentality that tells us more about what we're going to be dealing with So let's continue as we go through the day. So I'm just going to keep adding layers to what I've already spoken about. Okay. At 9:30, I'm sorry, between 10:30 and 11:30 a.m., Moon is going to hit a square to Pluto. But what's interesting is at 10:31, I got it at 10:30. We're going to just pretend it's already happened. Venus goes into Gemini while the moon is hitting that square to Pluto. Now, the moon is in Pluto's sign. You say something to hurt, I'll say some other kind of truth. I'll bring something else to the surface. I'll say something that'll trigger you. And it's like this stair step vibration of like, I can put you in your place faster than you realize. I know more than you realize. And once certain things get spoken, once certain truths are revealed, we cannot unreveal them. We cannot uncrumple the paper. We cannot take it back. That is a big possibility. Another way that this can be read is it's seeing the condition of how bad someone is. Now, with the moon hitting that square to Pluto, that can be a trigger of fear, but it can also be triggers around death. That Saturn-Neptune conjunction, they're as close as they're going to get, but Neptune is actually going to be turning retrograde. We can be hearing about elders and their condition, that they can't continue their treatments, they can't continue certain medicines, they can't continue what they previously had. And that can be like the spoken awareness of you might not learn it until the day, the actual daytime of July 4th. So again, when the moon hits the square to Pluto, that's exactly whenever Venus is going to go into Gemini. So it's like that new information, the arrival of something that like confirms a fear, confirms a frustration, confirms some other part of the dynamic. Okay. Now, we're going to bump this to 4:30. Jupiter is going to hit a trine to the moon. So here's Jupiter, 5 degrees, 42 minutes. Here's the moon, 5 degrees, 53. At 4:34, so we're just going to pretend like it's already happened at 4:30, Neptune turns retrograde. Neptune and Jupiter have very similar dynamics. Jupiter, again, the doctor, the guru, the teacher. But Neptune turning retrograde, there is a belief that cannot continue. There are treatments, there are medicines that cannot continue. There are things that cloud our senses that can no longer continue. There are lies that will no longer continue. Jupiter can be the doctor, the guru, the teacher. That's why I keep going with the idea that some people are going to learn about treatments, that Grandpa is not going to continue his treatments. But other people, it's going to be something about you get around the right group of people. It's like dating a new guy and everything's been feeling really exciting. But then, like, once you're around his friends, they're like, oh, well, you're nothing like the other girls he's been bringing around. What other girls? What other girls? There's been other girls like last year or last month? No, like last week. Whoa. And it completely like changes your perspective of the reality that you have been in, that type of stuff. It's not always going to be about cheating. It's not always going to be that type of way, but it's like we have one belief going into the day that by the end of the day is like you seeing something from a very different perspective. And it brings new information. Venus going into Gemini as Neptune is turning retrograde. And it's going to add layers to how the entire weekend is going to go. So again, Jupiter hits the trine of the moon. Simultaneously, Neptune is going to turn retrograde exact at 4:34 p.m. Central Standard Time. So bump this to 5:30 and you can actually see he's now retrograde. After that, the next transit is going to be one that carries us from the 4th into the 5th. So I'm going to bump this to 11:30. And what's going to happen is Mercury, 9 degrees, 20 minutes, hits a square, 90-degree angles to the moon. This can be a challenge. But again, we have something speaking to new information. Venus has just arrived into Gemini. Mercury is hosting that new Venus. The new information, the new arrival, the new situation, the new confirmation, the new belief, now being critically analyzed, critically spoken about, and bringing up insecurities, bringing up certain emotions, because the moon can be feeling very insecure while in Scorpio. But it's like the new information brings up old wounds. It brings up old insecurities. It brings up old ways of thinking, old triggers. This brings up an old pattern. And there can be that discussion, the analysis, our minds overthinking in so many ways about what we can do about a situation or how something is making us feel. Now, again, Mercury's in this square to the moon between 10:30 p.m. on the 4th, but it continues into the 5th. It continues into that 12:30 time span. But between 12:30 and 2:30, we get another transit. So there's something about these overnight hours, like we're staying up late. And there's going to be some information, there's going to be some analysis, there's going to be some things that need to be strategized and spoken through and working through, even if there is the wounds, the fear, and the insecurity. Between 12:30 a.m. and 2:30 a.m., Mars is also going to hit a sextile to the moon. So while Mercury is still in the square, Mars starts its part, but Mars is in Mercury's sign. How we've worked through things in the past, how we can shift the responsibility, how we can take a different kind of action, how we can address something a little bit differently, how we can try, get some different ideas, some different opinions, and that can be a more positive way in those overnight hours. So I feel like our minds are going to be very, very busy overnight, July 4th and July 5th. But in other ways, we're dealing with a disruption and how that disruption is making us feel. We're trying to analyze some new information and get a better perspective. And again, once we understand this new information, once that truth has been spoken, the rose-colored glasses do not come back. So for some people, this is going to be like the spiral effect of dealing with certain truths and that type of thing. But for other people, it is going to be about the awareness of like grandpa, the treatments, the illness, the intoxication, the addictions, and what it's brought us to at this point, putting layers to that agenda, because I'm thinking of everything tied to Neptune turning retrograde. Okay. Now, as the day progresses, our next transit doesn't actually happen until the morning time. And this is going to happen between 7:30 and 9:30 a.m. So I got it now at 8:30. The sun in Cancer is going to hit a trine to the moon. Our emotions, again, the old wounds being brought up to the surface, some old insecurities being brought up to the surface, the lessons and the support being shown, an appreciation of something being shown. This feels a lot lighter compared to what we were dealing with and, the later part of the 3rd going into the 4th and the early part of the 5th. By the time those overnight hours of the 5th, by the time we get into the morning, like this feels a lot nicer, a lot calmer. There's a lot more of emotional things coming to the surface, but there's like a critical awareness in our emotions, why certain people's behavior triggered certain things within us, triggered old wounds, triggered old insecurities. And we might be able to talk through some of them on the 5th, but I don't necessarily feel like we're going to be quick to talk about everything on the 5th, because after the sun's trine to the moon, there's not a whole lot going on. We're building to things that are going to happen exact on Sunday. And we can still have things happen in the quote, quote, build up. But directly, there's no other direct vibrations to what's going on the 5th. So I feel like Saturday is kind of calmer compared to the energy of Friday. But some of us might even just be going through the motions of Saturday because you're stuck at the lake all weekend and you can't really do anything. So as opposed to trying to have this conversation now and being stuck in misery for 3 or 4 days, we're just going to wait until it's time to go home. We're going to wait until Sunday. Okay. Now, between 3:28 and 3:49 a.m., so I got this now at 3:30, Saturn is going to hit his exact sextile to Venus. But Venus just brought new information. Venus just brought something unexpectedly to the surface. And Saturn is the elder. It is the authority figure. It is the responsible party. If you're going to do this, I'm not going to support you. I'm saying that because Saturn is about to also go retrograde. And there can be some things spoken about, like a hesitancy of, if that's the way you're going to go, this will no longer be here. I will no longer support you. I can't help you. I don't have the money. I don't have the strength. I don't have the capability. I can't help you. Based off some of that new information that has kind of come through. So again, Saturn hits that sextile to Venus exact between 3:28 and 3:49. This can still be a human effect of what happens on Saturday. But again, it's just the most exact on Sunday. Between 9:37 and 9:57 a.m., so I'm just bump this to 9:30, Neptune, 2 degrees, 10 minutes, hits a sextile to Venus, 2 degrees, 9 minutes. But Neptune is now retrograde. The new information, the new conversation, the new things that have come to the surface. I don't believe you anymore. I know the truth now. I know something better now. I don't have to deal with you anymore. And there's something about that shift in the belief, that shift in the truth, that shift in the treatments. For some people, it's going to have to do with treatments. But there's something about that Sunday morning about like, it's time to have a conversation, but it's also time to let somebody know, I don't want you around anymore. Or it's that confirmation if we're on that Neptune side of like, I just can't believe you're going to behave this way. What? I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to live in your false little world, that I'm not going to put up with your drama. Then you continue to act that way. That's on you. But there's something about that Neptune vibration now that it's newly retrograde of just, it's a tug of war of like, as this belief, as this information continues to move us forward, other people are no longer being in support. Okay. Between 4 and 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I'm bump this to 4:30, the moon is going to hit this opposition to Uranus. Uranus is 24 hours away from changing signs. This is going to happen on Monday. A lot of the vibration between whatever happened in the Venus-Uranus energy felt like a foreshadowing and an arrival towards something new that's going to come through. And we need to continue to have certain conversations about the progression of things. Uranus opposite the moon right here feels like a final meeting, a final conversation, because it's at the end of signs. So something else can begin, so something else can take shape, so something else can fall into place very soon. There's something about this opposition that feels like a completion, but it could also be telling somebody, we don't need to see each other again. Yeah, I got a big eye opening this weekend hanging out with your friends. Maybe we shouldn't date. I didn't realize that the last 3 times that you went out camping with your buddies, you took a different girl each time. We don't need to hang out. We don't need to talk. We don't need to be friends. And that moon hitting the opposition of Uranus, it's just like that next wave of something that needs to come to a close. Now, it's not always going to be that heavy, but there is like an unexpected closure, an unexpected ending, an unexpected phone call that can result in something else. But at the same time, it's not all going to immediately result in something new, in something different. Okay. The moon hitting the opposition to Uranus happens between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Afterwards, at 5:07 p.m., so bump this to 5:30, the moon is going to go into Sagittarius. Now, the moon in Sagittarius, this is the first time we've got a moon in Jupiter's sign while Jupiter's now in its exaltation. We haven't had this yet. This is the first time the moon being in Sagittarius. And there's something about the things that we're nurturing, the things that we're caring about, the things that we're willing to put forward, the ways that we're feeling supported. Because a lot of last week's new moon in Cancer had a support vibration to it. It did. It brought forth an awareness, but this is the fire side of Jupiter. This is the action side of Jupiter. There is a lot more about the actions and the reactions to what we're caring for, what we're nurturing, who we are helping, who we're being supported by, that now has like an uptick in the vibration, an uptick in the abundance, an uptick in the ideas of where we're willing to challenge some things and where we're willing to start new things based off of the way how everything is arriving and going into new signs and doing new things or going in new directions. But the moon in Sagittarius feels hopeful. It feels helpful. Between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m., I'm going to keep this going. Now we're going to 8:30. The moon is going to make a trine to Saturn and to Neptune. These two are so close now that they're literally happening within the same 30-minute span. Both of these go exact closer to 9 o'clock. So like Saturn is right before 9, Neptune is like right after 9, but they're so close, it's unreal. And again, there can be a passion and understanding as something that we're wanting to express to an elder. We understand that they cannot continue their treatment. We are talking to our parents about the crazy guy that just took us out camping for a weekend and we didn't know he had like 3 other girlfriends. It could be a part of that. What's interesting though is that 9:30 spin, when I bumped that to 9:30, is not only is the moon hitting this trine to Saturn and Neptune, it's also starting its opposition to Venus. So this kind of stair steps into something to where whatever happened over the course of the weekend, it's like we get into the evening time and we're telling our story to someone else. We're talking about what's going on. We're talking about the change. We're talking about the arrival of something new. Look at Uranus. It's 29 degrees, 59 minutes. On the 7th, the way we start the next week is Uranus's arrival into Gemini. And there can be the news of like what new is coming through, whether other people like it or not. So there could be these exciting conversations about an arrival, about a change, about something new that's going to come through that is going to also allow for shifts in responsibility, whether that's a positive or negative. We'll get to it when we get to it, but it's really coming to a turn, coming to a head as we get into Sunday night. Sunday night's got a lot of things going on. The moon hits that opposition to Venus. It's still in that trine from Neptune. You can see it right here. It's exact at this 9:30 span, just about. But then between 10 p.m. and midnight, got this 11:30, the moon, 3 degrees, 12 minutes, will also hit a sextile to Pluto. Now, the sextiles to Pluto don't seem to be nearly as intense as some of the other things, but it can also be the awareness of how we're going to overcome, how we're working through some things, what we're dealing with, and it can still have the third party vibration that again kind of sets the stage for what we're going to deal with on Monday. Why do I say that? This is at 11:30. On Monday, Pluto will actually hit a full trine to Venus. And there can be some inklings, some stuff of like an old insecurity, an old fear, something about the plumbing, something about a frustration, something about a power struggle, something that's been going on behind the scenes, below the surface, that's some kind of secret, something that was not known, that has forced its way out, but it's coming out in a way that helps us overcome our fear and insecurity, and is likely going to have some level of support given the way the moon is at. Now, I know I'm talking about basically midnight right here. There's going to be a lot of vibration to Sunday evening that takes us into the next week. And there can be a lot of excitement. There can be a lot of new information. There can be a lot of news. And as much as the Venus Uranus can be a heavy weighted energy of no longer having certain beliefs or certain support because of the retrogrades that are starting to set in between Neptune officially, Saturn days away, there is something also about Venus and Uranus's conjunction that feels like an announcement and an arrival. It can be a completion, but it can be like we're finalizing something and we're super excited about it. But then once it's finalized, we go tell everybody, okay, you can come over here now. You can come over here. We can do it over here now. We can work it this way. We've got this other thing. We've got this other momentum. We've got this new idea. And it can be positive just as much as it can be negative. But there's something about that Neptune retrograde right in the middle of it that feels like a shift in the belief, a shift in reality. It's no longer having certain rose-colored glasses. And the arrival into that new, the direction of that new, really takes a spin as to how we're going to deal with next week. Now, I know we've already had a lot of new things. This feels like a build up or off of whatever new we set into play over the course of the month of June. And it is going to force the next form of changes, the new form of strategy, the new adaptation of certain things. But a lot of that adaptation is going to have certain exposures to it, positive and negative. But a lot of what we've been doing and working on and busy with all throughout the month of June, it has to continue. It has to progress. It has to go to the next level. And that's what a lot of July is going to start to feel like. The next level. Good, bad, and ugly. It's the truth. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I can't wait to see some of you in Denton, the ones that are going to come to the event in Texas. Hit me up with questions, hit me up with concerns. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. And I will put out more information on the classes with Energestic that are going to start in July. So, like I said, I've got the dates already kind of set, and I'm going to start building curriculum this next week. So, I'll talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.